Sex trafficking. Who are the victims? Welcome, everyone. My name is Susan Patterson. I am host of this YouTube channel and author of the book, How You Can Fight Human Trafficking, Over 100 Ways to Make a Difference. I am also the director through God's Grace Ministry who hosts educational events to equip the faith community to fight human trafficking. So who are the victims? According to studies that have been done, close to 84% of prostituted people are victims of sex trafficking. You can find the link for the study I'm referring to in the video description below. 80% of sex trafficking victims are U.S. citizens. For labor trafficking, the majority of those who are victimized for labor are usually foreign-born. The majority of sex trafficking victims have one or more vulnerabilities. Being poor makes one vulnerable, but most often it is the combination of being poor and coming from a broken family or from foster care is where we see the majority of victims. 70% of human trafficking victims are from the foster care system. It is worth noting here that according to the Pew Research Center, in 2022, in the world, 7% of children live in single-parent families. In the US, 23% live in single-parent families. Here is a chart of who the poor are in the US. As you can see from this chart, the highest rate of poverty comes from Indigenous people and the Black community. In addition, in the Black community, close to 70% of Black children are from single-parent families. Add in racism and lower than average literacy rates, it is no surprise that the Black community has been especially vulnerable to becoming victims of sex trafficking. To get at source issues for this community, these dynamics need to be addressed, which is why we host the National Black Faith Coalition Against Human Trafficking. You can find their events on the homepage at our site, throughgodsgrace.com. For the Hispanic community, what makes this group especially vulnerable is that in addition to poverty, it is the gangs who control the lower income neighborhoods. And we have events hosted by the National Hispanic Faith Coalition Against Human Trafficking to address these dynamics that has this community so vulnerable to both sex and labor trafficking. Another group that is especially vulnerable are runaways. 70% of runaways are girls. According to the Center for Missing and Exploited Children, 1 in 5 homeless youth will become a victim of human trafficking. In the US, 2.8 million minors run away every year. Within 2 days, 1 out of 3 will be approached by a human trafficker. 99% of runaways do return home, but that still leaves 28,000 a year who do not. Since so many do return home, the police won't start looking for a runaway for 2 days. If that child ran away to be with an online predator, this creates a real problem in finding them. Work is being done so that if a child is suspected of talking to an online predator, they are given priority. So what should you do if you think your child has run away with an online boyfriend? Check your credit cards. In one case, a girl did not return home from school, and the mother in California did check her credit cards and found payment for a plane ticket to New York. Because of her quick action, the police in New York met her daughter as she was getting off the plane and picked up her online boyfriend, who is a sex predator. We have a parent presentation that you can find by going to our site and scrolling down on the Education Resource tab till you come to the prevention section. This video equips parents to know the signs and what to do if they think their child is talking to an online predator. Many young people will be tricked by the promise of money, but more often than not, it is the promise of love that sucks them in, meaning a boyfriend who pimps them out. One important point we make in the parent presentation is that parents should be checking from time to time for a second cell phone, especially if they suspect that their child is talking to an online boyfriend. Sexual predators and sex traffickers send minors or even adult victims a second phone so they can't be tracked if they run away. A second cell phone is a major red flag that tells parents they need to scour their children's online activity. Prostitution has been highly glamorized, which makes it easier for the pimps and sex traffickers to recruit. On college campuses, prostitution has been promoted as female empowerment. I wish there was more exposure to the true reality of prostitution. The media should show the incredible, demeaning way that sex buyers talk to the prostituted person. It would disgust you in a way that you can't even imagine. Yes, not all prostituted people are victims of sex trafficking, but according to studies that have been done, as I mentioned in the beginning, 84% of them are victims of sex trafficking. For both sex workers and sex trafficking victims, a study done by the Research and Education Organization makes the case for how violent prostitution is. Prostitution has the highest rate of homicide than any other profession. 82% of prostituted persons report having been sexually assaulted. 55% have been assaulted by customers. 68% report having been raped. 48% have been raped more than 5 times. For the sex trafficking victims, in addition, they experience a higher rate of PTSD than soldiers involved in conflict. In one study, researchers from the Institute of Psychiatry, Psychology, and Neuroscience at King's College London found that 39% of adults and 27% of children who were trafficked had PTSD. Depending on the type of conflict, the rate of PTSD for soldiers is 10 to 31%. The report is entitled Prostitution, Violence, and Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder, and you can find the link for both of the studies that I mentioned in the video description below. Victims of sex trafficking are considered to be property of the sex traffickers. They tattoo their victims so everyone knows who owns who, and they GPS chip them so if they run away, they can find them. Quotas are often $1,000 a night for street prostitution. If the victim doesn't make quota, they are severely punished. We are talking torture, as being burned, beaten, ice baths, or even waterboarding. Or their families are threatened. In the video I did on Who Are the Pimps, one example I used was Pimp Snooky, who made this video of how he created his business and how he kept his victims in line. In one scene, a girl had disobeyed him, and while she sat sobbing in a chair, he got on the phone and ordered a hit on her parents. Can you imagine the guilt of these victims when their traffickers do that? After much pleading, he relented. However, this tactic is often used to keep victims in line. Only 2% of victims are ever rescued, which is why prevention is so important. Prevention is the main role of churches and schools. There are over 500,000 churches in the U.S. Can you imagine the difference it would make if they all did a parent and teen presentation like we have created? The other main thing churches need to do is recruit good foster and adoptive parents, given how vulnerable this population is. And we address the many things churches can do in this video, how the church can take action in the fight against human trafficking. You can find this video by going to our site and selecting the Education Resource tab and scrolling down to the section entitled The Power of the Church to End Human Trafficking. Please do support our work by subscribing to this channel and liking and sharing this video. Thank you for watching.